Hi, my name is Mordy Oberstein. I'm the CMO of Rank Ranger, and I'm here to talk to you about what I think is important in SEO walking into 2020. And what I think is important is taking a more multidimensional, less linear look at core updates. What do I mean by that? Well, sometimes we tend to fall back on our fallbacks. That makes sense. On links, on to certain technical aspects when dealing with a core update. But what I think makes a little bit more sense is to consider the overall picture, meaning a multi-dimensional look at what is going on around the core update. What's Google been doing? What's Google been pushing for? What are some of the new abilities that Google has or that has displayed to us? Where's the inertia? Where's the momentum? What's Google pushing for? And considering that when analyzing a core update, because think about it like this: Google's gotten way, way, way more qualitative when approaching anything and everything, from entities to web pages to site, whatever it is. Google's gotten way more human-like with its language, for example. And Google's doing that because it's fun, it's great, it's cool, it's helpful, because they want to use it as part of the ranking equation. So we should use it as part of our analysis equation when approaching a core update. Because, I mean, think about it. The last year and a half, we've seen neural matching at the local level, the prolific proliferation of the topic layer. I mean, look at a mobile knowledge panel now versus 2 years ago. We have BERT, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So Google's getting way more qualitative, and it's important to consider where Google's going with things, that overall picture when approaching a core update. Now, in terms of how to actually get into the nitty gritty of this, how to approach this in real terms. So I would start with sites, right? The sites that were hit by an update, the sites that were that lost rankings during an update, and approaching them holistically. And I mean that something very specific in that. I mean taking a look at the sites that won, the sites that lost, and looking at the latent messages within the content, within the tone of the content, within the format of the content, within the UI, the UX. What signals, what latent messaging are you giving Google in terms of your authority, in terms of your trustworthiness for this topic, for this vertical, with how you go about your content, how you go about your UX, how you go about your tone, how you go about your UI, and that sort of thing. Or if you really want to get into the heart of the matter, and this is great because I think SEO is finally catching up to marketing in this, where we can talk about the psychological impact of the user, not Google. Think about the way you use your content, the way you use words, the tone you take, the UI, the UX, everything about your site. What psychological signals does that send to the user? How is the user psychologically interpreting what they're seeing with your site, how they're interacting with your site? Because that will probably put you at a very close place to how Google's looking at your site, how Google is interpreting your site, the signals that Google's taking, the messaging that Google's taking away from your site, and a very, very minimum, you're going to be aligned to where Google wants to go with how it looks at your site. There are certain patterns, certain elements that have come out of the core update, certain messaging that Google loves or hates. But for that, you can hear me speak about that at SMX West. So a little plug there for SMX West. Again, really important, I think, to take a more, don't fall back on links, don't fall back on the technical aspects per se or alone, but think about the overall context of a multi-dimensional approach to looking at what's happening with the core updates. Again, where Google's heading, the new abilities Google has, the things that Google's trying to do, where the momentum is, where Google's pushing for, and analyzing your sites or your competitor sites, the winners, the losers, holistically and accordingly. So hopefully that was helpful. Good luck to you in 2020, and I'll see you.